We have Lieutenant Colonel Jimmy Cummings on the line. He's a spokesman for NATO's International Security Assistance Force. What can you tell us about the specific sites that have been attacked and about the human toll?
Good morning. Thanks for having me this morning. We can confirm that several attacks took place throughout Kabul this afternoon. Our initial reports indicate that insurgents took positions in mostly unoccupied buildings outside Kabul's green zone and fired into the green zone to the vicinity of the U.S., German, and British embassies, as well as some ISAF and government of Afghanistan facilities. Right now, we have, as far as coalition forces, we have no fatalities. Right now, it appears, I cannot confirm this, but as far as any casualties, a very low number, if any. I guess the great news of today's attacks is how the Afghan security forces responded. We've just recently gotten in some reports that the Afghan security forces captured some of today's attackers and possibly one planner of today's attacks. Also, our reports indicate that the Afghan security forces stopped and detained 2 suicide bombers prior to them reaching their target. And I've heard the reports that the Taliban declared this act as the start of their spring offensive. If this is it, we are underwhelmed. And other than this being a high-profile showing with small arms and RPGs, I would call this a military failure for the Taliban.
Well, I want to ask you, sir, it has been 5 hours that the fighting has been ongoing. We have a whole list of sites that the Taliban have claimed to have attacked or be attacking. I'm wondering if you can simply confirm or bring us up to date. NATO headquarters. The Taliban claim to have attacked NATO headquarters. Any truth in that?
Again, they took up positions outside the green zone and fired small arms and rocket-propelled grenades in the vicinity, as I said earlier, in the vicinity of ISAF facilities and some of the embassy locations.
What about the Parliament building? Because the attack there was said to be serious enough that members of Parliament, I'm talking about lawmakers, elected officials, felt that they were needed to assist uniformed Afghan personnel. Did the insurgents attack Parliament, and is it the case that Afghan forces were so outnumbered, so outgunned, that ordinary civilian lawmakers felt the need to help them fight the insurgents back?
I can't confirm that report. You'd have to ask the government of Afghanistan on that, but I can confirm that from the reports that we're getting that the Afghan security forces performed well today.
Well, let me ask you about another report. We have seen reports, and once again, I'm using you, hoping you can help us confirm these or lay them to rest, that in fact the insurgents were audacious enough to attack military bases. Turkish and Greek soldiers said to be responding to an attack on their own base. Is that true?
Again, just like they did in the center of Kabul, there are some additional ISAF facilities on the outskirts of Kabul that were also came under attack, where the insurgents took up positions in unoccupied buildings that were often a distance from these places, and again fired into using small arms fire and rocket-propelled grenades.
Once again, we're talking to Lieutenant Colonel Jimmy Cummings, a spokesman for ISAF, which has watched as Afghan forces have responded to a series of daylight attacks inside the Afghan capital, Kabul. Colonel, what about the presidential palace? Is that one of the sites that was fired on as well?
I have not received or seen any reports that indicate that, but again, I'd refer you to the government of Afghanistan for that.
How many insurgents were in Kabul today, fighting?
Right now, we're still collecting that information on our operation reporting. But again, we have identified 7 to 8 locations that we think that most of these attacks, at least were munitions were fired at. But we do not have a final number. Again, we've gotten reports of the Afghan National Security Forces capturing 2 to 3 of the insurgents today.
7 or 8 locations. That speaks to a very big and coordinated operation. I'm wondering if you can speak to that. The Taliban are claiming they spent months planning this. They seem to be causing a lot of chaos in the Afghan capital.
Again, from a military standpoint, I mean, we're overwhelmed by this. I mean, they took up positions outside the green zone in buildings that were under construction, and basically, again, fired at, into the green zone, which in the green zone, there's a number of embassies, ISAF and government of Afghanistan facilities that are real close to each other. So again, when I say 7 to 8 targets, that's 7 to 8 different locations inside the green zone.
Colonel, it's not my business to correct your language, but I just want to be clear. You said underwhelmed the first time you used that adjective and overwhelmed just now. I'm wondering which it is.
I'm overwhelmed. I'm sorry, I'm underwhelmed at again at the showing today.
Fair enough, and forgive me. Let me ask you about human casualties. Any word on any hostages being taken or any civilians being hurt?
I don't have any information on civilian casualties. Again, I would refer you to the government of Afghanistan on that one.
Now, what about other attacks outside of the capital itself? We have heard of reports of attacks in at least 2 Afghan provinces. How much do you know about that?
We've also received some reporting of 2 or 3 different locations outside the capital of Afghanistan, other cities. But again, very similar situations where they've taken up positions in unoccupied buildings outside those locations and fired into them.
Colonel, you've been so helpful. We're grateful. Jimmy Cummings, Lieutenant Colonel, spokesman for the International Security Assistance Force in Kabul.